Columbia, South Carolina, where Republicans gathered for an important conversation about fighting poverty and expanding opportunity. And we began by asking the New Jersey governor, where has this Republican Party been in 2016?
If you go to my town hall meetings in New Hampshire and in Iowa, you hear it, because folks ask some of these questions. You may not see it on the paid advertising or other things, or some of the interviews that people give, but if we're asked the questions, we give good answers on this, and we talk about it. And I certainly do in my town hall meetings across both New Hampshire and Iowa. So those are important issues. And when people have heard me talk about the teachers union, education, they've heard me talk about drug addiction and how that is an enormous problem in our country.
It's interesting you actually brought up drug addiction in South Carolina, which wouldn't seem to be as safe a political play as it was in New Hampshire. You got big applause here, just like New Hampshire.
Drug addiction is happening in every community in our country. And heroin is becoming a bigger and bigger problem again in our country. It's more available.
What a huge difference for this Republican Party to applaud when you say, let's stop the incarceration madness. Let's talk about treatment. In South Carolina.
Yeah, that's because there's real families, Joe, being affected by this every day. They're feeling it now. They're feeling it. They see it in their neighborhoods, sometimes in their own family. And they're desperate. They're desperate for people to treat this like a disease and not like a moral failing.
So Jeb Bush has kind of gone after your record in New Jersey.
Yeah.
Just a tiny
Everyone's
bit.
coming after me now, because that's okay.
Yeah.
It means we're in the game.
But both as, governors, he's run a state, you've run a state, you're running a state. Does he have a point in terms of some of the fiscal problems? No,
he really doesn't. I mean, it's Jeb's being out of this business for 10 years and probably not being current on what's going on. I mean, the fact is that New Jersey last year, 2015, we had our best private sector job growth year in 15 years. And I knew that was going to take time.
Marco Rubio's been tough on you. What do you say?
Yeah, well, listen, I just say to Marco that, I wonder what happened to the guy who stood on the stage and lectured Jeb Bush about, just because we're running against each other, someone's convinced you that saying bad things about me helps you. Well, apparently that same someone's now talking to Marco and he's listening. I'm just not going to engage in that kind of stuff. Now, fact is, I understand he doesn't understand a lot of this stuff because he's never really done anything. I say, Joe, the United States Senate's like school. They tell you where to go, where to sit. Then they tell you what you're going to talk about that day.
But you also say he doesn't show up for classes. Well, if it's like school, he's not even showing up for classes, according to you.
The truant officer is out looking for him.
You spent 261 days outside of New Jersey running for president. But the bigger thing is how New Jersey voters feel. I mean, 58% in a recent poll feel the state's on the wrong track. What, without sort of taking away from the state of the state that you'll be delivering on Tuesday, what will you be saying to New Jersey to give them hope that perhaps you are putting the state on the right track?
Well, we are. Listen, here's part of the problem. This would be like as if the folks at NBC knew that you were looking for a new job, they wouldn't be thrilled with you. I suspect. They would be a little disappointed in you, and they wouldn't think as highly of you as before.
Hold on.
Don't tell them what's going on.
We told you couldn't say that when the red light was on.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You couldn't.
Another mistake cut.
And they came to me, okay?
Yeah,
okay, they came to her.
And as did many people across America come to me and ask me to run for president. So here's the thing. When you do that, people at home with the job you already have are going to be a little miffed about it. I get that. But in the end, what I'll talk about on Tuesday are the things that have gone extraordinarily well in New Jersey and the plans that we have for the next year and things that we're going to do. And we're going to have some exciting announcements to make on Tuesday. And I think we're going to be talking to you guys after that as well about what we do.
The first elected official to endorse you is the governor of Maine, Governor LePage. His comments recently.
Number one, I got a bill into the legislature right now to take the traffickers. Now, the traffickers, these are people that take drugs. These are guys that are named D-Money, Smoothie, Shifty, these type of guys that come from Connecticut, New York. They come up here, they sell their heroin, then they go back home. Incidentally, half the time they impregnate a young white girl before they leave, which is a real sad thing, because then we have another issue that we got to deal with down the road.
That was racially charged.
Listen, I heard Paul's remarks, and frankly, he's apologized for them. And so if we're going to wind up judging everybody in this society.
Those are pretty offensive remarks, were they not?
But Joe, here's the thing. We can't judge people by one set of remarks they make, especially when those people apologize and genuinely apologize afterwards. And so, from my perspective, Paul LePage is a good friend of mine. He's an outspoken guy. We all know that he shoots from the hip. And when he does that, there are going to be times when he says things that even he, in retrospect, thinks he shouldn't have said. But it doesn't change a bit for me my affection for him, my respect for him as a leader and as a person. He's a good man, and he's apologized. And every one of us, me and everybody else who's in public life, says things at times they wish they could take back.
Never.
You know.
What's the first thing you do? First day you were elected president of the United States, sworn into the office. What's the first thing you would do?
First thing I would do is sign Executive Order number 1, which would be to freeze any new regulation from any department or agency of the federal government for 180 days. Stop the federal government from regulating for 180 days.
Who's the first leader you'd call?
The first leader I would call?
First world leader.
The first world leader I would call would be Prime Minister Cameron.
Saudi Arabia and Iran right now, in the middle of a pretty big dust-up right now. Is there any question in your mind on whether Iran or Saudi Arabia are closer allies?
Which one is closer?
Which one's closer to us?
No, there's no question. It's Saudi Arabia. No question in my mind.
Is Egypt a good ally of ours?
I believe they are. I believe they are. And the fact is we don't treat them that way. The fact is that we threw Hosni Mubarak under the bus. Hillary Clinton fully participated in that.
How devastating was that to our relationship with other Sunni nations across the region?
Completely devastating, because if you're them, you have to wonder, am I next? Yeah. If you're king in Jordan, if you're the leaders in Saudi Arabia, the royal family in Saudi Arabia, or in the Emiratis,
right.
You got